Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. In today's video I'm going to be using Aqua Cast water-based eco resin to create a Christmas tree shaped candle jar, and then I'm going to be trying out a slightly unusual idea that I had for embellishing the Christmas tree jar to make it look like it's covered in real snow. If that sounds interesting, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Okay, let's get started. To fill my jar mould and the lid mould, I needed to measure out 147 grams of water and 415 grams of Aqua Cast eco resin from Elichem Resins. And once my water and powder were measured out, I gave it a really good stir to make it as smooth as possible. One of the things I love about Aqua Cast eco resin is that if you find that your mixture is too thick or too thin, you can easily adjust it by adding more water or more powder. In this instance, I was finding my mixture was a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be, so I added a very small amount of water to thin it down a little bit. And then it was time for my pigment. I had the shade of green in my mind that I wanted to achieve, but not quite the right pigment for it. So I kind of made it up as I went along. I started with some vivid green from Homeware Design, and that was nice, but still not quite right. So after that, I added a little bit of Envy, also from Homeware Design, and then I liked it a lot more. Now this brings me on to a message that I received the other day from one of my viewers. She was asking for some advice because when she was adding pigment to her Aqua Cast, she was finding that sometimes the result was quite speckled and uneven. And the thing is, if you're adding a lot of pigment to your Aqua Cast, this can sometimes happen. So what I recommended is exactly what I'm going to do next, because hopefully it will help you with this problem. So what I've found works really well if you want a good even colour is after you've finished mixing in all of your pigment, run it through a sieve into another jar. So that's what I'm doing here. I've got a sieve which I bought just for using with Aqua Cast, and I always keep a bucket of water next to me so that after I've finished with the sieve I can just put it straight into the bucket of water, and then I don't have to wait until I've finished with my project before I clean it, and it won't get all blocked up. So that's a good tip. Make sure you keep a bucket of water nearby if you're going to use a sieve. And so what happens is when you pour your Aqua Cast through the sieve, any little lumps that are still in there will get trapped, and as you push it through the sieve they'll be smoothed out. Because I think that what causes that speckled effect that you sometimes get is tiny little bits of powder that didn't quite mix up, and so you end up with little white specks in your finished piece. And I do find that this really helps a lot, and you'll see soon when I demold it how even the result is. Right, here are my Christmas tree moulds all ready to be filled from Boo and Nicole. As you can see, they're very nicely made. They're lovely quality silicone, nice and soft and supple, and very easy when it comes to demoulding. I like to add just a little bit of Aqua Cast at a time, move it all around, squeeze it all at the bottom to make sure there's no pockets of air in there, and try to coat all the sides with the Aqua Cast, and it just helps to make sure that there's no surface bubbles on the surface of your mould. It really helps if you can do that first. So yeah, I'll speed up now because I took quite a long time. I think it's very important to really take your time at this stage. Don't rush it. If you just pour all your Aqua Cast in and wait for the best, often it's not going to be the best. Really take your time, pat it down a lot, pat the sides, bang your table, help the bubbles to come to the top. If you've seen any of my Aqua Cast videos before, you've heard this all before, but it's so important. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I can't stress this enough. Take your time, sit with it a while and keep your eye on it, especially if there's an overhang at the top of your mould, because you will get bubbles trapped in there if you're not careful, and they might need a little bit of persuasion with a micro brush to tease them out. And that's another good thing about these moulds, is that they're quite see-through, and if there's any bubbles trapped under an overhang, which you've got on this one here, you can see them and you can help to get them out with your micro brush. Right, after an hour, it was time to take them out of the moulds. As you can see, the top surface where I've poured the Aqua Cast is quite rough, and that's okay. You can easily sand it with some sandpaper. It's best if you use wet sandpaper, and it smooths it out nicely, so that's not a problem at all. So let's have a look at this. As you can see already, the colour is nice and even, and I think it's a nice cheerful colour. I didn't want it to be a really dark green, which would have been more realistic, and it would have probably actually contrasted with the snow, which I'm going to put on soon. It would have, with hindsight, it would have contrasted with the snow better if I'd made it more of a darker, Christmas tree green. But something was telling me not to do that. I just wanted to keep it bright and cheerful and not too dark. So that's why I chose this colour. But yeah, I think it looks really good and I'm happy with it. And really, I could have left it as it was, added my candle and called it finished. It's already beautiful because it's such a great mould. But if you know me, you know that I can't just leave things. I've got to just give them a finishing touch. I think that's the most fun part, isn't it, to decorate things and embellish them. So I decided I wanted to make this into more of a realistic, natural tree covered in snow, rather than decorating it like a decorated Christmas tree, if I'm making any sense. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to add some snow. So what I've got here is some white flocking powder, which came with my Elichem Resin squishy kits recently, and I had it left over. So I've just put it into a cup because I wanted to add some blue glitter to help to give it that natural glisten you get with snow. Yeah, because it often has like a blue tinge to it, doesn't it? It's not pure white. So that's why I went for the blue. It's a very fine glitter, and I'm just mixing it all up, ready for the next step. Okay, so what you're about to see is really an experiment. Normally, you would think just put glue onto the Aqua Cast and then add your flocking, wouldn't you? That would be the sensible option, I suppose. But I wanted to try something. It was in my mind and I just had to try it. So here I've got some spray varnish. It's the Makota spray varnish from Resin Pro, but I think you could use any spray varnish really. And I'm giving it a good coat all over. I've just taken it outside. I've got it on my turntable and making sure it's fully covered, and then I rushed back inside with it while it was still nice and wet, and with my flocking powder I just sprinkled it over the top as though it was snowing, and that way I knew that it would rest more naturally onto the shape of the tree. And I've just remembered I actually put it into a little sieve and sieved it over the top rather than sprinkling it with my fingers. And there we go, it's like a little snowstorm. But one thing I did do, which I didn't film, so I'll tell you about it now while you're watching the snow, is once I'd finished applying the snow or the flocking, I allowed the varnish to dry. I didn't move it, I didn't dust off any excess flocking, I just left it as it was. And then when the varnish had dried, I took it back outside and I gave it another spray of varnish in exactly the same way, way to help to secure the flocking powder so that more of it stayed on, because I didn't want it to all drop off, and I thought that way it would be, just better. Anyway, so after I'd given it the second coat of varnish and allowed it to dry, I brought it outside again because I decided I wanted to give it a layer of glitter on the top because it was just missing something. It wasn't sparkly enough for my liking. So here I am giving it a third coat of spray varnish, and by the way, it did actually work really well. So I was glad I tried this out. And then I took it inside and started adding my glitter. So this glitter is called shaved ice and it works really well. I'll have to see if I can find it on Amazon so I can give you a link in the video description. But yeah, all I did was sprinkle it on top, just like before, but without the sieve, just with my fingers. And yeah, that really gave it that extra finishing touch. And then I was much happier with it. Once the spray varnish was dry, I gave it a good brush down with a decorator's brush. I wasn't too gentle with it because I wanted to make sure that if there was anything loose, it came off. And so, yeah, I didn't want to be getting glitter on my hands every time I handled it. And then it was ready for the candle. And I had one that I just popped in there rather than melting candle wax and making my own. I was being a bit lazy, but it's just the right size for one of those candles, so it worked great. So I was very kindly given this mould by Boo and Nicole, and they also gave me 2 other Christmas moulds from their new Christmas collection, and they were all gorgeous. You may have seen one of them last week if you're a regular viewer, but if you don't watch my YouTube shorts, you might have missed the 1-minute video that I made of the acorn jar. So what I've decided to do is just put the YouTube short that I did into this video because it's only 1 minute and I thought you might quite like to see it, and yeah, and then you'll see them all together at the end. First, unwrap your beautifully soft and strong acorn jar mould from Boo and Nicole. Measure and mix enough water and eco resin to fill the lid mould. Add your green pigment and keep mixing. Pour it into your mould and tap the sides thoroughly to bring the bubbles to the top. Repeat the process for the jar mould, changing the colour to your preference, and don't forget to add the magnetic mould housing to keep it perfectly perfect. Take them out of the moulds and love them just the way they are, or get ready to paint. You can paint it with acrylic paints, then seal it with Boo and Nicole's gloss sealer and admire your finished result. So there we are, a quick bonus project added to the video. I hope you like it. I love that acorn jar. So let's see my 3 finished pieces from Boo and Nicole all sat together. So this is the acorn one that you've just seen, of course. And then if you didn't see last week's video, you won't have seen this one, but it's my Christmas bauble jar, which I love to bits. I think it's my favourite. And so now we've reached the end of the video. If you would like to purchase or view anything that you've seen in today's video, please check out the video description where you will find links and discount codes. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to, and I will see you again next week. Thank you for watching and bye for now.